CBS News weather producer David Parkinson joins me now with the very latest on the storm. So what's the update?
So the update is we're down to a Category 2. We have lost major hurricane status. The winds are 110. Just to put that in perspective, it wasn't more than 3 days ago that the storm was at 185. So we've lost a good 75 miles an hour of wind strength. It's just because it's been stuck over the same place for so long that it's losing its fuel. And in fact, though you can see an eye on the radar, the satellite shows you that there's pretty much no eye there. So it is becoming a less well-organized system, I should say. And you can see there, it doesn't have that perfect circular nature to it there. The bands are sort of breaking off. They're not perfectly formed there. So we are seeing a storm that is weakening. It is not weakening horrendously to the point where this is going to be a nothing storm, but it is to a point where if it were to make a landfall somewhere on the southeast coast, we're in a better situation. So that's good news there. It's moving to the northwest at 2. That is the first movement we've had pretty much on this thing in over a day. So the forecast right now is it is a Category 2 just offshore Cape Canaveral by tomorrow morning, and then it quickly gets on its horse by Thursday morning. It is offshore of Charleston, and by Friday morning, it's gone. So that's good. The one thing that I do want to point out, and this is the reason why it has weakened, right? You see that 86 down there? That is where the temperatures were before the storm moved in. What's happened is it has pulled all of the warm water out of the ocean there. So that 86 became an 80. We lost 6 degrees of water temperature there. So that's really why you're seeing that intensity decrease, that structure decrease as well. But that 88, you see, that is in the path of where the storm's going. That's why we think it's going to be a strong Category 2 pretty much all the way up the coast. It's not unheard of for it to get back up to a 3. It's got a small window. It's got about a 6 to 12 hour window to do that before there's some shear and some other things it runs into. It's also not impossible that if it doesn't get a move on quickly, that it stays at a Category 2 and even weakens a little bit.
Man, you answered like pretty much almost all my questions and some that I didn't have because I didn't realize it was sort of responsible for its own demise because it's sort of gobbling up the fuel that it needs, which is warmer water. But then what does that mean for the coast then, sort of northern Florida? What are the implications there? If it's not going to be wind damage, is it about storm surge still?
Well, so it's a little bit of both, right? So the part of a function of the storm surge is 2 things. One, it's the pressure of the storm has an impact on the storm surge, and those are usually correlated. But it's also the amount of time that the winds have been pushing water onto the shore. So a lot of times what you'll see with the storm surge is you'll see it piling up, particularly in the back bays. Most of the beaches in Florida are pretty well duned, which is to say that you're not really going to worry about the storm surge problems on the beach side. It's on the back bay side where everything has gotten pushed into the intercoastal and is getting shoved up against sort of breakwaters and things like that. In terms of what you're going to be seeing on the coast, we've got a graphic that shows where the wind impacts are, and you'll see that the tropical storm force winds there extend from Melbourne down to West Palm Beach. That's this morning, and then as we go into the evening, you can now see that area slides up, right? So it's Daytona, also Cocoa Beach, that area as well. By the time we get to Wednesday morning, it stretches from Cocoa Beach at its southernmost point, probably to the Florida-Georgia line, maybe as far north as Brunswick, Georgia. And then by Wednesday evening, you can see it's pretty much all of coastal Georgia and then part of South Carolina that's starting to get into it. Thursday morning, this is really interesting. Look at the core of the hurricane force winds nipping at the heels of Charleston. So there is a real chance Thursday morning you have 74-mile-an-hour winds in Charleston. It is the most likely place to see those winds of any place in the coastal United States over the next several days. But by the way, look at that. By the afternoon, by evening news time, if you will, as we say here in broadcast parlance,
right.
Hint to the people who are listening at the assignment desk, you can see you've got hurricane force winds nipping at the heels of Wilmington, North Carolina, of Carolina Beach, that area which was battered so badly by Florence. The only fortunate thing we have to say with this storm is it is not going to be sticking around like Florence. It is on its horse, and by Friday morning, that thing's off the Outer Banks. And though it may be windy here in New York, we don't have to worry about any impacts by way of, an actual hurricane coming through.
Cool.
All right. Good news for the residents of those communities. David, thank you very much.
Sure thing.